Don't be afraid of the collapse. You're surrounded by it now, and you don't even realize it. One by one, the dominoes fall. Power is held in fewer and fewer hands. Every crisis is an opportunity for the technocrats to force their way and get closer and closer to their goal of global governance. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we're going to look at this issue, which is very important. 2 Italian banks are collapsing. I didn't get to do a video about this yesterday, unfortunately, but here we are. This is out of the Washington Post. The ECB pulled the plug on 2 troubled Italian banks, sending them into insolvency proceedings and pushing ahead with efforts to clean up the weak banks holding back the economy. They're suggesting that it is the bank's fault for holding back the economy. The whole system is set up to be a failure. When you have banks that have 3% of reserves, you know they're all insolvent. That's the joke about this. It's seriously a very funny joke. This has been a problem, very clear problem, since, we'll say about 2011, 2012, sovereign debt crisis became very apparent. Prior to that, we had the issues in the US and other places. Insurance, banking, mortgage lenders, everything was just showing how real risky it has become, fragile. There was nothing but lies and fraud, and it almost failed. The central banks came in, they printed up trillions and trillions of dollars. We had all of the media spitting out all the garbage that everything was fine, and the market picked up. Of course, we have seen with complete fact-based evidence that the central bank balance sheets and the global stock markets are directly linked. They are one and the same. That's the reason why everything has seemingly done well. But of course, that's just one indicator, and there are hundreds and hundreds which show the opposite effect. The 2 banks have struggled to overcome high levels of loans that were not being paid back. Look, the banking system, they have this thing called fractional reserve banking, and I'm sure 99% of you know exactly what that is. I describe it in my first book, and the problem with fractional reserve banking is that if even a small percentage of people decide that they want to pull their money out, then that small percentage of people turns into a very big problem. There are many reasons why a lender, why a bank, why any of these institutions may fail, but it doesn't take much. It actually takes a very small amount because of fractional reserve banking, and it's under the impression that the government will be there to save the day. Look, maybe they are in this case here, but what if it wasn't just these 2 banks? What if it was 6 banks? What if it was 8 banks? What if simultaneously banks failed in Italy, Germany, Sweden, and Australia, and everything else? Would they all be able to keep up all at once, or would that start a chain reaction of failures? That's what worries me, is that chain reaction. One at a time, they can nationalize them, they can print up some currency, they can give it to them, they can say the bondholders are at fault and they will deserve it, so they get a bail-in and all this stuff. It doesn't matter. What I look at is the effect on you and I. And it's never a good thing, never. Even if the bondholders take a hit and you and I aren't part of that and that's what they're claiming, it has a negative effect in the long term. Maybe in, let's say, the medium term, in fact. The ECB said it had given the banks time to raise more capital, okay, total fraud, but that the banks had not been able to offer credible solutions. It ruled that they were failing or about to fail, and they're insolvent. Okay, well, how do they do this? Well, they issue debt. They say, look, buy our garbage debt that we have, that we screwed up on, and we'll give you a little bit more down the road. If you were the German government, you could issue debt at a negative interest rate and people will buy all of them up. And it seems odd but that's what's happened. That is, in fact, resulted in trillions and trillions of dollars worth of debt being bought up. A negative yield. I mean, it's sick. It's ridiculous to think about that. If I give you money, I loan you money, $100 loan, and then I say, look, I'm going to give you this money, but you owe me $95 back. I mean, does that even make any sense? Or the other way around. Anyway, you see where I'm going with that. Look, it's all upside down. And I'm reading it and it's just, how is this even supporting itself on central banking anymore? I don't understand it. I really don't. Weak banks that can't lend adequately to businesses have been a key weak spot for Italy and the Eurozone economy. The ECB took over as top banking regulator in 2014 as part of an effort to strengthen oversight of the European Union's banking system. So the ECB, let me just read this last line. The ECB was given the job because the national regulators were considered too slow to address the troubles at their home banks. You can't even decide what you're going to do in your own country if you're in Europe. Think about that. Oh, okay, you're going too slow, meaning you're not following the rules that we've put in place. We're unelected technocrats, and you are at fault. So as a result, we are going to step in and we are going to decide what happens. This is when you know that you have a tyranny. It's global government. Perhaps not the whole globe, but it is a supranational entity controlling what your government does. I mean, this is gone. It's gone. It's gone. Face it. The Italian government said it made a 5.2 billion euro of resources immediately available to keep operative to banks that the ECB had deemed failing or about to fail, sending them into insolvency procedures. Look, they're going to figure out a way to get them money. But wait a second, where did that money come from? Well, that's pretty obvious. The premier defended the swift action by the government as vital for ensuring Italy's slow economic recovery isn't derailed by a disorderly failure. That's right. Because they screwed up, the people of Italy are on the hook. That's the way it works. And they say, look, if we don't do this, we are going to have a big problem in the banking industry. It's going to get out there into the economy. Our economy is already in trouble. Therefore, we need to really patch this up right now. Let's just take care of it now, and then later down the road, everything will be fine. It's not. It's not fine. The two banks are based in the Northeast region, one of Italy's most economically productive. And I would say that you can have productivity in different sectors, different regions, but ultimately when you have a noose around your neck, at some point you will find yourself hung. This marks the first, this is actually referring, just recently there was a bank in Spain which failed, and it's referring to this. I'm just showing you that this is happening. It's not the first time that a bank in Europe has failed, or a bank anywhere has failed. This marks the first time under the EU's Bank Recovery and Resolution Directive, passed in January 2016, that shareholders and subordinate bondholders of a European bank have not been bailed out by taxpayers, but were, quote, bailed in. And the way that I see it is, whether you call it a bailout or a bail-in, I'm not going to really believe that they are going to let their friends take a haircut. Sure, maybe if I owned a bond, that they'd make me take a haircut, but not the big boys. No way. The Warren Buffetts of the world aren't going to have to take a haircut. I'm not going to believe it. I don't care what they say. I'm just not going to believe it. And it was for the first time that a banking failure was allowed to occur in either Spain or Italy whose resolution didn't involve taxpayer intervention. Perhaps the Eurozone's banking authorities are finally growing some teeth. The fact that financial markets received the bail-in investors calmly tells the ECB that investor bail-ins are the route to go, and so the rule takes hold. Look, bail-ins might be just the bondholders, but what we have to worry about is when they come for the deposit. It's been done before, and I think that they can use a few times like this, just making the bondholders take it, and so people are saying, yeah, bail-ins are good, and then they start going for the deposits. And they will do that. I don't know at what point, but here we are. I think if it snowballs, I think they'll have to go for the deposit. That's my opinion on it. This was back in July 2016. Italy has no banking problem. That's according to the finance minister. That's right, no banking problem. And then 1 year later, Italy has a banking problem. That's right. Whenever they go and tell you that there is no problem, that's when you need to run for the hills. There's more in the article, but it's old news. Let's move on. The EU's greatest achievements according to Europeans. The percentage of the public in the EU, UK, thinking that these are the greatest achievements. This lighter blue is the total, and the darker blue is the UK. And what I found very funny was that in the UK, they seem to have a difference of opinion, particularly in this, none. So what are the greatest achievements of the EU? People in the UK said none. And then this right here, the EU currency, essentially none of the people in the UK suggested that the EU, the euro is a good thing. And many more people within Europe or the EU itself said, yeah, it's a good thing. You know, it seems like this Brexit is struggling. But I don't believe that most people in the UK, in fact, a lot of the EU, want to be in there. I mean, this is the technocratic elite. Look at what's happened with the ECB right now. Oh, you can't handle the problem? We'll step in. It's not, may we step in and help you? It's just, we are stepping in. And that right there, to me, shows that they have the ultimate say. Last but not least, this right here. Who needs fundamentals when the fit is this good? Expect markets to flounder as the central banks try to exit. And if we get into this scenario where the central banks actually do withdraw from their balance sheets, let the things expire or sell them off, however they're going to do it. Look, if that central bank comes off their balance sheet, brings it down, I believe the stock market will head in that very same direction. That's what I predict. We'll see what happens. I mean, how else are they going to rescue it? The economy is not doing well. They've pushed the stock market up with central bank intervention. How in the world will they get it to reverse course? In my opinion, it's not possible. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. Last but not least, if you found the video informative, I know you will find my books, The Money GPS, and my new release, Global Economic Collapse, even more informative. You can flip through the books at Amazon. They have a look inside feature. It's going to allow you to flip through the pages of these books to see if you like them. Take care.